Hello, my name is Catherine Pincus, and I'm an instructor in the Business and Technology Division, and I want to welcome you to Spotlight on Chabot. Today I have with me a special guest, Carol Splendore, who is an adjunct faculty member in the School of the Arts. She's been with us a long time, I think 9 years.
9 years.
You, Carol? That's great. And so today we have a special treat because we're going to be talking about the arts and why students should be interested and engaged in the arts, and also Carol's own path to getting to become an artist, because that's a very important part of what helps foster creativity. So Carol, I'd like to start with where were you born, and I think we have a picture of the house that you grew up in.
Yes, this is the house that I grew up in, and it's in Palatine, Illinois. And it looks so spacious to me looking at it today. And you can see there's this vast expanse of sidewalk in front of it. And my younger sister and I used to love to draw in chalk all over the sidewalk down the front of the house. And then we would just move to the neighbors' houses and on and on. We'd cover up like 10 houses, and the neighbors didn't appreciate it so much they'd come out and hose it off.
Oh,
we couldn't imagine why. But I loved to draw as a child, so that's one of the ways that I knew that probably I wanted to be an artist.
So that was the start
Yeah.
of your process. Let's take a look at the next slide. This is a picture of two girls. Who's the other girl in this picture?
So there's the tallest is my older sister Peggy, and then in the front's my sister Laura, who would draw with me, and then I'm being shy. I actually am kind of shy in the background, hiding.
Very nice. And in the next slide?
These are friends from undergrad. So I went through high school, and I just knew I wanted to change and try something new, and so I went to the University of Illinois and in Champaign-Urbana, and I started in art history as well, but then after a couple months I called my dad and said, I really want to be a painter. Is that okay? And he was a great guy, and he's very supportive, and he said, sure, if that's what you want to do. So I transferred into painting, and I was taking classes, painting, drawing, composition.
And so that's certainly a lifelong activity.
Yeah.
Art history really studies the great masters. And what Carol was referring to is I'd actually done my first 2 years of undergraduate work in art history before I moved on to a business career. Let's take a look at the next slide, because I think this is some of your work.
Yeah, that's undergraduate work, which is probably my junior year. And we had an interesting assignment, which was to do 3 projects in 1 week, and they were testing how well we responded to pressure. And so this was one of 3, and I thought it turned out great. I did it on a sort of a plywood that I cut off with a coping saw. I cut out the edges of it, and I painted it in these flat, bright colors. So I think color's always been of an interest to me in artwork, and less than form. It's not very three-dimensional looking. It's really shape and color.
It's actually quite amazing and very charming.
Yeah, he was an amazing model. He was a ballet dancer, and he was like in the suspended pose like for hours on end.
For hours in that pose. Oh my goodness. Let's take a look at the next slide.
This is more work from undergrad. Probably this is like junior year again. And I was with friends. We would play around and back paint on glass. So some of the friends that were in the earlier slide, we kind of would we did collaborative work on the same pieces. And we took over a bar, and we did all the windows in the front of the bar and the mirrors and things like that. And this is just a piece that I did, small scale. It's sort of a narrative story with the tree and 2 coffee cups, and you can imagine some sort of conversation took place. There were a lot of trees in Urbana, too.
I think painting windows is a delightful project.
Yeah, it was.
And the next slide?
This is more back painting on glass. So what it is it's acrylic paint painted on the reverse side of glass, and you're looking through it. And these were fragile paintings. A lot of them did break. But I was trying to sort of tell a story with them, and I didn't realize until I got to graduate school that the way that you have to really think about how your viewer is getting the information and how you're communicating it. And so I had all these lofty ideas about what it would be about, but people had a hard time understanding what my work was about. So it was a skill I developed later, like understanding what the ideas were and how to communicate them well.
Was that a thread that actually turned you into a teacher?
Oh,
Was that
for
one of the
sure.
threads?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think like both technical skill are really important and having an idea or meaning to the piece are both hugely important. And, you know, I teach composition, I teach design. It's about how you use the fundamentals of design to communicate your ideas. It's very useful, very good work, that subject,
Well, that's
composition.
also a delightful painting. Can we see the next slide, please?
So after undergrad, I was ambitious and I moved to New York. And this is actually a friend from undergrad who was visiting me in New York. And I'm in my waitress uniform because with a degree, a bachelor's degree in fine art, you need a trade. And so I was a waitress for a lot of years.
Well, I think that's certainly something our students can relate to.
Yeah.
Because many of them are trying to get an education and doing whatever they have to do to make a living to be able to do that. So you were one of the New York's many starving artists,
Yeah.
but you got to do it.
Right, right. And, you know, I actually did well in waitressing, and I was involved in hotel management, and I got to a point where I quit my job and I just was working like 4 nights a week waitressing because I was fine dining. I mean, you can do well enough, you know, if you live modestly. And so I had the time to paint and get together my work to apply to go to graduate school. Because for me, I really needed to go to graduate school to bring myself up to a more professional level. Like I wasn't a genius. I needed to have some good instruction.
I think even the real geniuses look for technique and look for the kind of stimulation that comes from being around other artists
Oh yeah,
as well.
definitely. School's great for that, for all the people you meet.
And let's take a look at the next slide.
This is taken at the time that I was making the work to get ready to go to grad school.
All right, and so you're still in New York. That
Still
looks
in New York. I think that's either the Brooklyn Bridge or the Williamsburg Bridge. I don't know if it's actually possible to rollerblade across it because I think it's wooden. But I used to skate around New York. It was fun.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, New
Central
York is,
Park.
You skated in Central
Oh yeah,
Park.
Central Park's beautiful. They shut it down to traffic on the weekends.
And let's see the next slide.
And this is an example of the work that I did when I was used to apply to go to graduate school. You need 20 works. So I got better.
And this was one of the seminal pieces. It looks really very nice.
Yeah, it got more realistic. I wanted to learn how to draw better and get things to look more realistic.
Well, this certainly does look that for sure. Can I see the next slide?
So the next slide is an image of the San Francisco Art Institute, and that's where I went to graduate school.
And
So
how did you like that?
I loved it. I mean, it's a crazy place because it's very conceptual. There, you know, painting is there, but I mean, there's like digital media, there's performance art, there's it's just so much more broad and more cutting edge than just painting and sculpture. And so it was, and it's only a fine art school, so no design. You know, it's very theoretical, conceptual. And I needed that. I really thought that like I needed to be in a place where they would challenge me to think more clearly about what my meaning was and how to communicate it.
That's excellent. And I think the next slide shows us something that's very different than anything we've seen before.
Right, and that's just 1 year after school. Well, even less. I mean, that's like 9 months after being in school there.
Those are huge paintings.
Yeah, they're huge. They're watercolors and charcoal drawings, so both. And so they took a lot of time, and they gave me a lot of tendinitis. all that charcoal drawing, which now I just mostly paint because it's a much lighter touch and it's easier on the hand. But you can see how tired I was. Like the wall is just holding me up in that picture.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay.
But it's great to be in school and to be open to it, to be open to change.
I think we have some more photographs that are very different. Can we see the next slide?
Yeah, that's the same day. That's my husband helping me hang the work so that a teacher could come in and talk to me about it.
So how does that process work? How do you get the feedback that you need that helps you?
Well, they have different sorts of classes. Like they have seminars and tutorials, and the seminars are with a group of maybe 12 other people, painters. And so you'll get feedback from the teacher and from the other students, and maybe 3 people during the course of one class will show their work. So,
and so you'd bring that, hang it, and then...
Yeah, you'd bring a couple paintings and hang it and then get feedback. And then something like this where there's more of your work, it would be more for a tutorial where you would have a one-on-one meeting with the teacher, and they would talk to you for maybe an hour just about what you were doing.
Goodness. It's got to be helpful.
Oh yeah, very helpful. Yeah, yeah.
And the next one seems like that's a lot of paintings on that one.
Yeah, that was 2 more years later, so it took me 3 years because I did a post-bac degree.
And what does that mean?
It's like a year before you get into the actual master's program. Like they want to see what you can do in that year.
I see.
And prove yourself, and then you can get into the master's program. Not everybody got in, but after 2 years in the master's program, then this came about, and it's very reductivist. It's very, there's no imagery on it. The imagery really comes in with the placement of the panels on the wall, and it's called family portraits. So they're portraits of the 2 human beings and the 3 cats that were living in my house at that time.
Huh.
And they're just told in the way of their color pattern, and they're arranged incrementally. So the one of 9 has, like, whatever she had most on her body was the pink skin, so the pink one is first, and then black, and then gray, and then going down to like eye, teeth, and claw, and things that were smaller.
Interesting.
So I'm talking about how my content has always been, now I know that after graduate school, is that my content is about subjectivity, that we don't see things the same way. What we know of the world is kind of individual to our experience. And so if I'm explaining a cat to you by this very odd incremental measurement of color, I'm saying that what we know of one another is kind of limited by our own way of looking at things.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So in the next picture?
This is good because it shows that what the paintings look like as a finished product and also as an underpainting. So the 3 on the top are finished and they're glazed, and the ones on the bottom are underpaintings, and so it's like an opaque light color. And what happens is more color in translucent layers goes down on top, and then the light looks like it's shining through them. They emit light. That's a glazed painting is the technique.
I see. That's the technique. And so the top ones have that effect.
Right. They've been glazed. And then there's also some cutout areas and some opaque painted with them to show contrast.
Excellent. And what's that technique called again?
Glazing.
Glazing. Okay. And the next slide?
This is a picture of my children in the garden, and I like to show it just because the garden's also a place where I'm creative, and I enjoy playing with composition and design and color.
So it sounds like much of your creative inspiration as time goes on really comes from the things around you.
Yeah, from life. You know, I think my work got better as I kind of gained more life experience, and yeah, I think so. And it's kind of more tangible and understandable to me to draw from life. My work doesn't end up being so contrived as it could be. Like when I was reading philosophy and making art, the work was terrible. It was really contrived. So I do better with things that I know in my life.
Did you find as your children were growing up that they were inspirations to you?
They are, but not in my art. My art now, what inspires me is like stars and other things. Like I don't...
You've gone to the galaxy level.
Yeah, I've kind of the microcosm and the macrocosm. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, next slide.
And then this is kind of a more current version of my work. You can see the imagery came back into it.
Yes.
It had been all emptied out, but I guess I couldn't stay there forever. And so this is kind of a nice balance for me between openness and open for interpretation, and also having some imagery to help direct you to what the meaning might be.
Lovely colors.
Yeah, and color is very important.
Are those glazed at all?
They are. The corners are glazed. So you might be able to see that there's a rainbow you can envision, because like the bottom of the yellow panel has a green corner which carries up to the upper left of the blue, and so on. So it's kind of a color progression moving from panel to panel, and the glazing is in that area.
It just looks so cheery.
Yeah, it was for my sister's wedding. for her. So
Okay.
it's a happy painting, and there's wedding rings in the golden rings in the corners of the red panel,
Oh, how nice.
and a bird in the first. Although, you know, you could read it like something else, and that would be just fine. I want them to be open to interpretation. But it's important that the artist knows what it's about, because otherwise the work is vague.
Right.
But that's different. It's different from the artist allowing there to be different possible interpretations.
So is it fair to say that as much in depth in interpretation that you feel other people may also interpret, but maybe in very different ways?
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. So there's a combination of abstractness, really beautiful color, and symbols.
Yeah.
Really.
In the middle panel, those are symbols for trees, like if you were looking up at tall pines
That's
and they were
lovely.
coming into view into linear perspective. Like my work with teaching composition brings a lot out in my own work.
And I think I couldn't help but be cheered by looking
Yeah.
at those, especially if they were for a wedding. How
Yeah.
charming. Let's look at the next slide.
And this is an image of my most recent work. I did some paintings over the summer that I had in a show in the fall. And so this is a triptych, again, which I like to work in groups of 3 often. And so there's a black panel with stars that are circling back into space. And
Okay.
within them, each of them has a color progression because they've been sanded down through layers of paint. So it's like a ring inside of a ring. And the color all plays off themselves
Oh,
and kind of
interesting.
electrifies. And then in the right panel, there's gold leaf on them around the same sort of sanded thing. And the gold leaf pops them, so they look like they're spiraling out back towards us. So it's about movement in space.
So it adds a dimensionality to that
Yeah.
work when you can see it.
Right.
Close up.
There are subtle effects that you see in person. And then the middle panel, it's like being caught in a web, but someone has told me they thought it looked like shattered glass, and I thought that was fantastic as well. So there's multiple meanings, but what I was thinking about was the sense of space, like being in vast space and pulling back down through current space and being stuck in between. And
That was just what I got. That was
Good.
really interesting.
see, I got
thought-
better at
Oh,
communicating my
she's
ideas,
right in the middle there.
even with very little imagery.
Yes, no, but that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And it's lovely again. Let's see the next slide.
And this is about called the spaces between, and it's completely glazed.
Okay.
So this one, if you look at it in a black room, it just disappears. It's black with no light. It needs light to see it.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And it's a red painting that has, panels within it where they seem to hold you back in space. So it's as if when you look at it, you're in one space and you're aware that there's another space beyond them.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, there's all these profound readings for that. But I want other viewers to kind of
What
get
did
their
you
own
call it?
feeling.
Or do you?
The
how do you-
spaces between.
The spaces between.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you title things, do you leave them with that same kind of opportunity for people to shape the meaning?
Yeah, the perfect title is like the setting for a stone in a ring.
Okay.
It kind of frames the work. It doesn't duplicate what the work is doing, but it helps to frame it.
That's interesting. I've often wondered about titles and how we, what was the most advantageous and most creative way to
Yeah.
actually, because the title is just as creative.
Yeah, it is.
It allows you to leap into the experience of the painting. Do we have another slide?
There's one past this one. This is a beautiful glazed painting, but without the spaces. This was kind of the one that led me on the path of the red
Okay.
paintings, and so I'm going to keep doing more red for
And
a
now
bit.
we can take you to, I believe, to your journey in the classroom.
Right. There's one more actually that was part of this series. That's another triptych that has a single stripe and then a glazed painting and then another single stripe, and it's part of that series. But yeah, here's the classroom.
All right, and so these are students of yours at Chabot?
They are. They're in my Art 11 class, which is Design, Materials, and Color. And it's a fantastic class because we get all the students from all the art area because it's a required class. So we have photographers and sculptors and graphic design and interior design and fine art, and you know, it's great. The mix of people is really fun. And also, because the way the class is set up, there are so many different projects to work on because it's both two-dimensional and three-dimensional. So we do painting and we do collage, and then at the end we do a sculpture that we paint. So there's a lot of variety.
So that's great. So you're actually stimulating people in a variety of ways as they're jumping into their art experience. That must be fun for you to see that creativity kind of emerge out of the use of materials.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I like to try different things myself too. It's hard for me to kind of stay within the one thing for my own body of work. So I love to be able to do sculpture, you know.
That's wonderful. Let's take a look at the next painting.
This is this one here?
Yes, let's look at this one. This is a color wheel.
Yeah, that's the first project that they do in Art 11, which is learning how to mix colors. And so they see how the pigments act, and they see what warm and cool colors are, and how to, even we do a little bit on how to glaze. I teach them how to paint in this class because it's what I do.
Sure.
So.
Sure. But I think that's fundamental as an underlying important aspect. I think there are things that you do in composition that carry over into photography, but when you do them by hand, you actually put that part of your brain together with the actual work. And it's the same thing with color. Unless you've actually creatively worked with color, you don't have the appreciation of the complexities or maybe even some of the nuances.
Oh, yeah.
So that makes complete sense to me.
For sure. Plus, it also teaches you how to see better. This class, you can see color better. We analyze it, and when they do the color wheel, that there's an example of the color wheel that I have them do. It really helps them to see, you know, the changes from one hue to the next and the changes in value, things that they never really saw that well before.
Wow, that's important. Next slide.
And this is talking with a student about her work, so they'll bring up their pictures. I'll go to their desks, or they'll come up and bring up their work if they have a question. And we're talking about the way that it's acting spatially, which is why I'm doing the hand gesture.
So it's important. So right from the beginning, it's that sense of space and dimension that's part of what you're offering the students.
Yeah, because part of the class is composition, and so that's an aspect of it. You know, I love teaching foundations because they're so useful. They apply to all these other endeavors that they're going to want to do, whether it's printmaking or photography or interior design. And you know, also the other thing that we haven't mentioned is that all art teaches that people really will need as a serious life skill is creative problem solving, like how to get out of a problem that they put themselves in with their painting.
Right, and so they learn how to balance and correct and solve certain issues that arise as the creative process takes place.
That's right, and it's a great skill. I see a lot of people who I meet that I really admire that have those skills, and they're using them in their work.
Okay.
And in their lives.
Okay. Let's take a look at the next one.
And here's a student working on her painting. When we start on some sort of looser, easier paintings, and the technique is called alla prima, and it allows them to build a painting with different paint consistencies, so there's a very nice, interesting surface quality. It's not like the same brush and the same all-over paint technique. So, and they're so great. They're the best students. They're so receptive, so they learn how to paint well just from the get-go.
That sounds like so much
fun.
Yeah,
I love this class.
That's great. Next slide.
Again, working on paintings.
Okay.
And there's a slide of the color wheel, too. It's important because it's a project that they're working on right now.
Ah, there it is.
And that is my version, and they have to basically, this is the only project that is this way. They basically have to copy it and do it just this one way so that it's hopefully looking really nice and balanced, where it steps down through all the hues. The hues are the middle ring.
Yes.
And the tints are the interior ring. That's the hue plus white. And the shades are the exterior ring. That's the hues plus black.
Just looks like it would pop out.
It's a beautiful thing. They like it. They frame it. They keep
It really does. It looks
Yeah.
three-dimensional even looking at it from here. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good visual effect. If everything is stepping right and nothing is flashing at you, that means that the progression from one to another is equal.
It's just lovely. I'd kind of like to see that on a stained glass window.
Yeah,
It'd be
yeah.
really beautiful. All right, so let's see. Do we have anything else that we're looking at, or should we talk about what we? Oh, here's a triptych. Is that what you call
Yeah,
it?
that was the last painting that I had brought along for that was part of the last show.
Okay.
It just goes with the other red paintings.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, if you have any comments or suggestions for students who aren't in art, what do you think would be the advantage for them just taking a basic art course? What would that bring to their lives?
Well, they'd get to try something new, and being at a community college, it's great if you have a plan and goal for the future and you want to transfer in a certain field. But another wonderful thing that we offer is that people can try out new things and be creative, find a place in their lives to work on these new skills. Maybe they're, in education we tend to be really left brain centered, and it allows them a chance to develop their creativity and their spontaneity and their voice and their personality, and it's a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think also a lifelong probably appreciation for the experience of art, which you don't really have unless you actually do it and have the opportunity to see, and also to appreciate the absolute complexity of it and how much work is involved.
Yeah, and another thing I would add on to that is that when we are brave enough to start making our work be about something and talk about that with others, then we start to build sort of an understanding for one another and sort of a tolerance for new ideas and other people's points of view, which is, I think, a great thing art can give us.
I think that's very important. You're developing a new language in a way with people because you're sharing a set of terms that we're not used to.
Right.
And that's definitely going to develop I think the right brain side of people and to make us more whole as human beings.
Yeah. I hope
Carol,
so.
thank you so much
my
for
pleasure.
being with me today. And thank you so much for showing me all the art.
Yeah, thank you.
And I look forward to seeing the classroom. I think I'll come over myself and put my hands on some paint brushes. This is Catherine Pincus for Spotlight on Chabot with Carol Splendore. Please check out her classes. Thank you very much for coming.